I'm sitting here waiting to go live, and I had to hit the button again. I was like, why isn't it going? Because I've never done this before, guys. It's only been, what, year and a half, a little more. Guys, how we doing, Jaglones? We are going to call the Jaglone Nation to do a favor. We are going to get Laura and Tanya Maite on the show. So they've been kind of jacking around with coming on. They're telling me they're going to, and then they never wind up doing it. So we are going to harass them, basically. No, we're all going to ask them nicely, and then we'll see if we need to escalate. So we are going to go live in 23 minutes. No, we're here. So we are going to ask them each once on isoBuddies or by messenger or however you contact them to come on, because it's time. So hi to everybody. We got Miles, we got Victor, we got Justin, we got who just showed up. Mantis Scott just showed up. Heather just showed up. What's up, y'all? That's all I'm gonna have time for. So today we have a special guest who I've been trying to get on. Every time I try to have her on, something happens. So she's one of the few guests who has not been able to come on that has really good reasons. So we won't get into those. It's not important. But we finally got Sara here. So she mostly does bugs, but also has frogs and has been doing frogs for a while. So she's going to be, I know this is like 2 in a week, but I think dart frogs, I've been waiting to talk about these forever. So this is good. We're going to get some more information. I have some actual questions lined up to ask. Wally's here. Wally, welcome. Also, shout out to Wally for trying to get more people involved in the Thursdays, the Thursday business focus groups. And then Mantis God trying to take over Victor's job. What? Yes, like and subscribe if you haven't. I'll get into the subscribe thing later. But yeah, Wally has been very helpful and always supportive, but very helpful trying to get the business profile thing going and a business focus. And then Russ has been giving us a lot of shout outs. So if you're new here tonight, welcome. And thanks for coming over from Aquarimax. So if you guys haven't hit Aquarimax or Supreme Gecko, go do that. Okay. I don't know how you got here if you didn't hit those pages yet. But if you haven't, go check them out. We need to pimp them too. We have a link already in the description of this video for Sara's page, iHeartBugs.com, I think. It's there. It's there. Friendopods. I love it. So, yeah, guys, we're going to harass the Maites. It's time. It's time to bring the big guns. They would do it to us. So we're going to do it to them. Okay? All right. Without further ado, let's bring Sara on before she falls asleep in the waiting room. And we have some great videos from her today, too. But we're going to talk a little bit about frogs first. All right? All right, guys. Here we go. Yeah, vitamin D is important. All right, Sara, thanks for coming on.
Hi.
Finally.
Thank you.
It's been a while, but it's worth the wait. So we got to talk a little bit before the show. I got the ant talk out of the way, so we don't need to do that anymore. It's pretty much every episode. I feel like I'm beating the dead horse talking about them. So thank you for coming on. First question. How long have you been keeping frogs, dart frogs?
Since 2010, so 12 years.
All right, awesome. I thought it was just the decade, so that's good. And then I guess it's just a decade.
Yeah.
Right. So how many species do you currently have in your possession?
19.
19. Those are isopod numbers, Sara.
I know, right? There's so many pretty colors.
I saw someone at a show Sunday that was in Wisconsin that was selling isopods, and they had, I think I have 17 species now. It's like, go home, get out of here. Right. I was shocked. I was like, oh my gosh, I have all of these. I'm on par with a seller now. Rookies. So, and then you do isopods as well. So a little bit, we'll get into that right now before the show really goes. But now, how many isopod species do you have on your site, roughly?
Probably 75 to 100. I have not all of them are on the site yet, but I have quite a few. I have 1 or 2.
1 or 2. 100. Okay, good. 1 or 2 50s. So, guys, check out the link. If you need isopods, go to the link. There won't be frogs there, so you have to be cool to get frogs. So, which I think is good. I think that's responsible for frog keepers because they're delicate little gems.
They are.
So, we're going to get into that. So, with their care, what is something? Let's get into like what's paramount, what's essential for keeping dart frogs. I know number one is like hands off, don't touch them unless you absolutely have to.
Right. Their setup, making sure that it doesn't have to be 100% humidity, but there needs to be humidity in it. And probably the number one thing people have problems with is keeping up with making the fruit flies for them to eat.
Okay.
That's their main thing. And it takes a little bit to get used to making them because you have to make them at a regular interval so you always have them. And they can crash just like isopods or whatever. So that is where people struggle the most.
Is keeping that supply chain ready to go.
Yes.
So do you do like a ladder system? Like how often are you starting a culture?
I start cultures on Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday because I have a lot of frogs. So, yeah, most people, I mean, I think if they were to do it, I mean, if you had 2 frogs, you could probably get away with doing one every other week or so. You just always want to make sure you have some ahead just in case.
Yeah, for sure. Just in case, and if there's a crash, you need to accommodate for that. Now, this is one of the questions. I'm going to jump ahead, and we'll come back to basic care. But with fruit flies being the primary food, that's all I hear from everybody. And then springtails for smaller ones, or you could do larger springtails, right?
Yeah, I just basically, I don't necessarily feed springtails and like dwarf isopods anymore, but I seed the tank. So there's always some in there, for them to have what I call a snack.
A snack, and it helps the bioactivity too. So I'm sure that they outnumber, they really don't damage the numbers of springtails or dwarfs, especially white dwarfs.
Yeah, no, not at all.
And the dwarfs are kind of on a different level. They're burrowed most of the time.
Yeah, for sure. And there's other food you can feed them. You can feed them depending on the size of your frog. Pinhead crickets, or some people do the bean beetles. I can't have those in my house. They freak me out. So it's a strict no for me.
Fair.
But they are available for bigger frogs. But fruit flies are pretty much the staple.
Okay. I have seen recently, I had them and was feeding them to different things, but like micro roaches, they're the tiniest little roaches ever. I will say if you get them, they are insanely hard to keep in their little thing. So keep them at your own risk.
Yeah.
I don't know how invasive they would be. Like I think they need specific requirements. I was keeping them very specifically, but I think they would make a great food alternative just to kind of spice things up, I guess.
Yeah, the better the mix you can give the frogs, the better.
Yeah. So, and then I think that's good. I can never think of this word. Where they have like mental stimulation. What is?
Oh,
somebody will come up with the word. I can never think of it, and it's my biggest thing.
Yeah,
we'll get there.
I always call it their feeding response, like what triggers them to. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I can't think of the word either.
Somebody will put it in post. They always know. I've said this word like 50 times. And enrichment. There we go. Enrichment. Thank you. Tagged in. Heather tagged in first. Sorry, Justin. So I think it helps with their enrichment. I think it's like, oh, what's this? And they have to hunt it differently. Like it's going to behave differently. Yes. It's going to be different. So you don't feed any larvae of anything. Like, no, like there's nothing tiny enough really.
I used to, maybe like 10 years ago, I would mess around with some of the fruit fly larvae. My frogs tend to like smaller food. Mine never liked the bean beetles. They never really liked the crickets. And especially if you have smaller frogs like Pumilio or thumbnails or something like that, they're not able to eat a lot of stuff. Their main diet is going to be springtails and small fruit flies.
Okay. All right. And then already a good question. So do you gut load for these guys, or is it just dusting basically?
The fruit flies, I use a media from Apache, so it is full of vitamins and all that. And I also dust the flies with calcium, and then a couple times a month, vitamin A, just to make sure the frogs are getting their nutrients.
Okay. Now speaking of that, so I heard someone talking at the show on Sunday. I like to overhear what the sellers are telling their people. Go like, I don't ever interrupt them, but I'm like, I'm not going to shop from you.
Right.
So, and I didn't know if this was true or not, but we had just had Josh Ferris on
Okay.
Thursday. So we
Yeah.
were talking about his business primarily, but of course, we can't contain my audience. So they had a million questions about frogs. So we kind of got like a premiere of frog talk. So do they need, or do you use the lights, like UVB lights? Because a lot of them are out in the day. So do they get benefits from that? I know that they're all in the underbrush and leaf litter and stuff, but
Yeah, your lights are strictly for your plants and stuff. The frogs require no light. Um, I just use I just use plain old like LED shop lights, and I use a
okay.
string of those on my racks with my tanks. So
That's all
you'll
I have right now, but I don't have anything that needs lights. So
yeah,
um, yeah, it's that and like those heat cords, the long heat rope or whatever for anything that needs heat.
yeah.
My friend Andy is here tonight. He's a rare sighting. How you doing, Andy? Good to see you. He's been working real hard. He's in IT, and they had a bad rollout this weekend, so
Oh,
I think he worked like 63 hours, and he's like 82 years old, so that's a lot. He's gonna hit me for that later. So they don't need the lights. So, and I know this is what boggles me though. This is the question that I had in my head that I came up with recently. I don't know why, but Josh and I were talking about not handling them, and if you do, make sure all cleaners and everything is off of your hands. Your hands are just neutral, no chemicals whatsoever. I feel like dirty hands would be better to have than
I agree.
any kind of cleaner or anything on your hands. So always 81. Okay. Andy, we just went over the crickets, so you'll have to watch later. You'll have to catch up, buddy. So you're dusting the food, so that doesn't affect them if it gets on them, really. That they just absorb it like they would.
Yeah, and I mean, you'll see in the video, like you'll see some of the vitamins kind of fall out of my cup.
Yeah.
Sometimes, every once in a while, it gets on the frog. Depending on how much it is, I'll either give them a spray of water, rinse it off. But I mean, if it's like a couple little specks, it's not a big deal.
So that those vitamins and those supplements are absorbable. Obviously, they absorb things through their skin, so they don't do any real harm. Like you wouldn't coat them in it. You wouldn't like.
I would never purposely dump the
Yeah.
vitamins, the Repashy on the frog. I mean, occasionally it does happen where they hop in front of it or something, but usually I just spray them off to be sure.
Right. So my thought was like, because I always see in the videos or on YouTubes or whatever that on the YouTubes, when you're dumping it, it gets on the rock or it gets on the leaf that you're feeding them on, and then
Yes.
they immediately get in that, like they jump into it. So I was like, wait a minute. Obviously, it doesn't do a damage because everyone
Right.
does it, or do a damage. Obviously, it doesn't do damage because everyone does it, and it happens to every keeper, every breeder.
Right.
Okay.
And I don't keep Pamilio any longer, but maybe 5 to 8 years ago, um, clay with calcium in it, they would
Okay.
use that because the springtails and everything would crawl across it, get the clay, and then the froglets would eat it, and that's how because calcium deficiency is big in like
Sure.
familial froglets, so that was a way for them getting extra calcium. I've never researched it a lot because I didn't have them, but I'm sure they can pick some of it up from the powder, the
Sure.
vitamins being on the ground.
Sure. Because
Yeah,
like I said, they absorb everything, or like we know, they absorb everything through their skin. So
yeah,
it has to get absorbed and go somewhere, right?
right.
So that is another question. I wonder if anyone has tried to add calcium powder to the fruit fly medium, or if it is it in the rapashi? Is it part
It
of the
may,
rapashi ingredients?
it may, I'm not sure, but one of the calcium plus I use several times a week to dust the flies. So
Sure, sure.
yeah, I'm
My
not.
brain is always trying to think of a better way to do things, and I don't know
Yeah.
how to do things regular. So to enhance them for you is very, yeah, it's very presumptuous of me. But I
Yeah.
wonder if that would be a solution or an option, right?
Right.
But you'd
Yeah.
have to test it. I'll have to
Yeah.
get
I'll read
Russ
the
on that.
label. Yeah.
Yeah, you'd have to test it and find out if they're actually getting the calcium or not, and in a better way than letting them get calcium deficient and then, oh yeah, it's not working. Uh,
Right. Oops.
these frogs are all jacked up. It's not working.
Right.
Now your substrate. What's your? Do you have a recipe? Do you have a recommendation?
Because I guess I've considered old school at this point, so I still use ABG.
Okay.
Um, and I have it in all my tanks. It lasts forever. I change it maybe every 5 years, and isopods, springtails, everything loves it.
I
So I
mean,
stick with that. It works for me. I stick with it.
if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And obviously, use a lot of leaf litter.
Yes,
So,
yes,
what leaves do you use? Because I know they're not like I can't go in my yard and get the leaves that I have here, basically.
yeah. I use live oak or sea grape or magnolia,
Okay.
whatever I find around.
And they
So
literally just use that for cover and to gradient their moisture level, right? Where they're at. If the substrate's moist, they can get out of it, kind of.
yeah, I kind of use it. I mean, for the microfauna and just to so the on top of the AVG, I have the sphagnum moss.
Okay.
So I use the leaves so that moss isn't always stuck to them also. So
Okay.
it the leaves provide several things. And
Okay.
they hunt, they get the fruit flies from underneath the leaves, so provides
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
yeah.
That's good. That's good. I like that. And like we're getting a lot of responses for ABG, and ABG is there for a reason. It's been a staple for 20 years because it's awesome.
Right.
So I know there's some hardcore keepers that are like, oh yeah, this, and that's great,
Yeah.
but don't necessarily need to. So it sounds
Yeah.
like you're adding everything to it anyway. So and probably have a calcium source for your isopods and everything in there. What is this? She'll be fine as long as they can't get out. Been trying to convince my chick friend to start a mealworm culture. Trying to get her man on board. I love Mantis God the way she says stuff. I'm trying to get her man to get her on board because I have a lot to give. All right. She's not even talking about mealworms. She's talking about just general love and positivity. That's
Yeah.
what she has to give. So the substrate's good. We talked about feeding. We're going to go back to. I had a question about lifespan, but there's like 1,000 species, so I'm sure. What I was understanding is like 10 to 15 years is a good general.
Yeah, I would say so. My oldest frog, she just turned 13. She came
Okay.
out of the water in July 2009. She's one of my first frogs. I still have a lot of my first frogs. Um, so yeah, I would say most of my frogs are between 13 and 8. Um,
Okay.
so they I don't seem to lose them as adults. Um,
Once they make it through that stage.
yeah, yeah,
And I think the thing is, people are like, oh, you lose them when they're babies. They have a million babies because they die. So,
yeah, yeah. I guess as long as they have their basic care. Some people, only feed maybe every other day or a couple times a month. I've never done that. I've always fed every day. I don't give them a
okay.
ton every day, but I do feed them every day. Personal preference. I think a lot of keeping dart frogs is what works for you. What works for me might in here in Florida might not work for you, up north. So, because I don't
Yeah.
ever have to worry about cold, the
You have to
temperature,
worry about heat. Yeah, you have to worry about heat in your
that I
situation.
do have to worry about. Yes.
Because over 80 is bad news, right? That's where danger zone.
Yeah, they say not to, but where they live, it gets over 80. So,
That makes sense.
yeah,
That's super true. They're from the jungle. What the hell?
So I'm not, yeah. So I just go with it. That's what everyone says, not over 80, but I don't know that's 100%.
That's hilarious. Like, I would hope it's cooler on the jungle floor, but it's like 100 degrees out there all the time, or 90, mid 90s, million% humidity. Yeah, we said that we're scared of beetles, at
Yeah,
least the bean beetles.
hate those.
Well, and then you have to separate. You can't actually feed them the beetles. You have to feed them the larva, and it's
No, you feed on the beetles too, but they can fly. It,
oh,
uh, rarely. That's not they can. Not that they always do. I just
okay. That's a thing. That sounds like a whole thing.
yeah. In my mind, it's going to somehow get in my pantry and like infest my pasta. So
Put
that's
it
my
on pasta
reasoning
in
for
those $30 plastic jugs.
yeah. So that's my reasoning for no bean beetles.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. I like that idea. I like that you have your limits. That's fair.
Yeah.
So none of the rice flower beetles or anything like that, right?
I used to, but I
Yeah.
don't any longer.
It seems like a lot of extra work that you don't need.
That the rice, that one's a lot of work. That one I
Okay.
don't. I mean, if you want to mess with that, it's good. Another optional feeder, but it is a lot of work.
Okay. I'm gonna pop those videos because I want to see the feeding video again. Oh, did I stop sharing? Son of a gun. Guys, I'm still learning this after all this time. Okay, let's go to it. And here's the video. We need to hit play. This is the one where they're calling. So. Oh, and I don't have the sound on.
Oh, there it goes.
We're going to start it over.
And she is not interested.
Yeah, you can tell. That's
Yeah.
him on the left, right?
Yes. Oh no, he's the one on the left. She's the bigger one on
Okay,
the right.
that's what I thought. Now, how many do you keep in a? That call is great. It's like, yeah, she's just like, dude, I said no.
Right.
No means no. This is what she said right here. All right.
Exactly. See, I knew you'd use it again.
See? Oh, now you guys are just seeing my Facebook feed. All right. What did I do? We have to get this other video up here. I think this is the one. Yes, this is the feeding video. Okay, so now you see all of these fruit flies going in. And this is funny because the fruit flies look tiny to these guys.
Yes.
So is there just the pair in here?
There is. Those are tinctorius. They generally do better in pairs. The females can be aggressive towards each other. I do have a few that are in groups of like 3 or 4 that have grown up together and they live happily together. But in general, I would only keep pairs.
Now, this was a question that I had. I guess it wouldn't change anything. She's the one laying the eggs. But is there any benefit to having extra males in with these guys, maybe?
Yeah, you could put an extra male in with them, no problem.
Okay.
It's just the females that you with the tinctorius you don't want to mix. Now, if they were leucomellas or auratus, they're great group frogs. You can put as many as space would allow, and they all get along great.
Okay. And now this particular species is, I love the tinks. There's the different, they have so much variety.
Yes.
So you hear tinctorius and you're like, oh yeah, they're the yellow and black ones, but they're not. Like there's blues and greens, and some of my absolute favorites are tinctorius. And I think I like a tank. What size tank are these guys in? What size? I'm assuming they're in Exoterra.
They are.
Okay.
They're in an 18 by 18 by 18 because they don't climb,
Okay.
so they don't need the space of the 24-inch.
Okay, so they're ground dwellers.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, good. So they could even have like a 18 by 18 by 12 if that existed, like a
Yeah.
shorter one.
Yeah, the only thing you'd have to worry about then was just if the lights if got too hot. That would be my
Oh,
only
fair. Fair.
as long as you moved them high enough up, it would be okay. Oh, tiger.
Yeah. Yeah, Menagerie said it's interesting that a lot of times the males are the ones that show aggression to each other. But this is,
Yes.
yeah, the females are in charge. They are matriarchal, these frogs.
Yes.
So that I loved their call, just
Yeah.
like an angry bee.
Yes. The ones that are really aggressive, the females, are the azurias, the blue ones. They are
Okay.
extremely aggressive.
Okay. I hadn't seen that. And they are gorgeous. Oh, and there's
Yes.
even more flies going in here. Now we talked with Josh. Have you noticed this behavior where they'll be on the leaf litter and they'll be in feeding mode and their little toe starts
Yes.
tapping to kind of stir things up?
Yes. That's a happy frog when you see that.
I like that thought. He's tied that behavior to they're like scaring food out of the leaf litter to try to get it to jump, so then they go for more.
You have to pay more attention.
Or
I
Josh
noticed when he was calling, he was doing it.
tapping his toe.
Yeah.
Oh, that might be something too, like a mating
Yeah, I'm not
thing or
sure.
a food offering.
Yeah.
I scared up this lunch for you.
Yeah. She likes lunch, you can tell. So
She's a big girl. Yeah.
she is.
I'm not trying to fat shame her, but she needs to lay off the cheese flies.
Yeah. She's actually very personable too. Like if I
Okay.
stick my hands in there, she'll jump right on my hand or try and jump in the fly cup.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so she's one of my favorites.
We were talking about how they're some of the more toxic ones, like tarabilis.
Yeah.
They don't care that you're in there. They're not afraid
No.
at all because they know, like, they're instinctually for millions of years, like, you eat me, you die.
Right.
So they don't care. They're like,
Yep.
you'll learn,
They're there. They don't care.
right? Which that always boggled me too. So if you're a predator and you eat a dart frog, you die. So you didn't learn not to eat them. You're just dead. Like, did the other predators watch you die and then go, oh, okay, that's a good idea. I'm not going to eat that. I don't understand it unless there were levels of toxicity as they came up. But that always boggled me. It didn't make sense.
Yeah.
So I don't know the evolution of that, but I feel like the toxin didn't just all of a sudden they were deadly. I feel like they were gross at first and then became deadly. So because like you eat it and then you're dead. That's it.
Yeah.
Because there's not like a variation. Like if you put it in your mouth and it gets in your bloodstream, maybe they taste gross initially, but like it's not like a gradient of toxin. It's just
Right.
boom, dead.
Yeah.
So it's like, were they watching you eat that frog? And they're like, oh, don't eat that. That's not good for you. I could watch this all day.
Yeah.
And I see that, yes, you did get a little dust, but I noticed you pretty much dumped the cup. And so you must not, you know what to use. There's not a ton on here.
Yeah. I've gotten good at it over the years.
And 12 years, I'll do that.
Yeah.
So then they're obviously not getting all the flies right away. Like you see, there's some getting away. So they'll be able to eat these. They'll be able to have hunting all night long, more or less, right?
Yes. Yeah, because the
That's so
flies
great.
get under the leaves and stuff like that. So they just continue to hunt all day.
I just think they're so fascinating. And now these guys, tinks, are in particular, I'm going to take this out. So if you guys want to keep seeing them feed over and over, that's fine. I'll leave that up. Yeah, don't lick these frogs, Victor, especially not if you have a canker sore. Now, the toxin, I did see this years ago, but the toxin, you can taste it. I watched a guy taste it in a tribal situation where they literally spear the frogs with their little arrow and then they burn it on there, basically. So obviously we don't like to do that here. But you can taste the toxin as long as you don't have a cut on your tongue, or it's when it gets in your bloodstream. So the guy
Oh,
who tasted it said this was years ago, like probably 20 years ago. I want to say it was David Attenborough, but it's very, very bitter on this particular frog. I don't know which one it was, but um, he had to gamble that he didn't have like his gums bleeding or
oh my goodness.
any kind of canker sore or a little nick on his tongue or you know what I mean? Because that if he did, he could have died instantly. I want to say it was tarabilis that they used
Probably
because
that's usually the one.
yeah, that's the one that'll kill you like right now.
Yes.
But these tribes they used them to hunt monkeys. So and the point was like even a little cut on the monkey and it would fall out of the tree like 5 minutes later.
Wow.
So yeah, don't lick any of your pets.
No, I think that's an excellent,
A
excellent
good
advice.
policy. If they lick you, that's cool, but yeah, I don't think you should like $5 if you lick an isopod. Oh, damn it. Miles is one of my patrons, I think. I think I have to do that now. I said at 10,000 viewers, I would eat an isopod live.
Oh,
I think it would have to be a full grown dairy cow.
oh my goodness.
I didn't say if I'd cook it or not, but I heard they taste like shrimp if you just cook them, you know, like a light steam, I guess would be what it is.
Steam it a bit.
Yeah, I don't know that I'd eat it raw. I feel like, yeah,
It's just running too fast.
yeah, yeah. I don't want to get banned by PETA either, even though I don't care about those people at all. I don't really care about those people at all. They're so annoying. But like when they started, they were good. Garlic butter. Now I want to. I shipped 1,000 dairy cows today, so that was daunting. I don't sell ever, but I just needed them out of my house. There's too many, and I easily have 500 subadults left. So I know
Oh my
there's another
goodness.
1,000 manca in there.
Right.
So next month, if anybody needs 1,000 dairy cows, reach out. I think it was $90 that I sold them for.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
What
the
a
shipping was
deal.
almost as much as the isopods. So anyway, we're talking about isopods again. Are there any isopods that you would like? I don't want to say display, but like, you know, like a roly poly that you would put in with them. They don't really. I don't see them ever damaging the frogs unless you got them into huge numbers.
I wouldn't put like any dairy cows or giant canyons, anything protein hungry.
You'd pretty much have to put cubaris for the moisture levels, right? Because the humidity. Porcello, you don't really like that much humidity, and obviously, yeah, the dilatatus, like
Yeah.
it's super dry. So, um,
Yeah,
could
like
you maybe
little
put a
C.
cubaris in there?
Yeah, little C are amazing
Okay,
in there. I put those in there. Mostly
okay.
dwarf whites, Costa Rican purple, or um the
The
roses.
grays,
I
yeah.
can't keep grays alive for some reason.
Huh,
Yeah.
that's weird. I wonder if they need something else. If anybody knows any tips for keeping grays alive, go ahead and throw that in there. I'll probably miss your comment, so I apologize, but maybe someone will catch it in a later view. They're going over recipes right now in the comments section. I don't know if you can see it, but they're going over isopod recipes. So, I
Well, at least
apologize.
at least you'll have your choice of a good recipe to pick from when you get the 10,000.
Well, I need something good because I was a chef, so I have that training. So I got to come up with something really good. I definitely is going to be fresh herbs and butter. Definitely dill. I think dill would be a good combo.
There you go.
I'm not going to make a dart frog recipe. One because they're too awesome, and two because I don't want to die. I mean, they don't have the toxins now, right?
No, they don't. In captivity, they don't.
And in the
It's
wild, it's something they
overheat.
eat, right? It's
Right.
okay, ants
It's
or something.
it's the ants and they. I guess I don't know that anyone really knows. Maybe they do now, but the last time I researched it, they think it's what the ants eat. It's a little chain of events.
Okay, and their body just stores it. That's cool.
Yeah. Mhm.
That's cool. And it's probably a food source nothing else can eat because it's toxic and yada yada. Life
Right.
finds a way. Um, Vic, she said she has 19
I
species.
think there's 19. Yeah.
Yeah, different species, not just like. Well, I guess there's some morphs. I guess they would call it, but it's just
I
some.
should call it different. I would call it different morphs.
Okay.
Um, After my vision, since it's not so good, I've gotten rid of all of my Pamilio and my thumbnails because I was afraid that one would escape and I wouldn't see it necessarily. So all my frogs now are tinks and lukes and aratus.
Okay, the bigger, more obvious.
Yeah, the ones I can see and I know where they're
Okay,
at. And that's,
awesome.
yeah. So it's all different morphs of that I would keep.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah,
I kind of like the bigger guys too because they're just
they're
more
bold.
obvious. So, yeah,
Yeah,
and they're active. They come out. They
yeah.
call. They don't have crazy calls. Um, the thing that bothers me as a non-ever keeping dart frogs, but loving them. Like I have a deep seated, like I have to see them if I'm at a zoo or an aquarium that has them. I have to sit and search until I find them. I think they're fascinating because you can't find these brightly colored frogs, and then
Right.
when you do, as soon as you see one, you're like, it's like those 3D image pictures that are hidden. You're like, oh my god, there's 30 of them right here.
Yeah.
They're right. They're all over the place. How did I not see them until just now? Because they're not camouflage in any way.
Mm-mm.
But we were talking before the show. You had the name, I think, down. There was this little strawberry colored frog in the middle of the enclosure on a brown leaf calling, strawberry color with these mint green irregular stripes.
Yeah.
And what did you think it was?
Santa Isabel.
Santa Isabel. I think that's right. I need to learn. I just know they're dart frogs. So, and then in that same enclosure, and it was big. It was probably, it was big. It wasn't huge, but probably like 2 feet deep and about that wide, and then like 4 feet high. So, and these yellow frog, they were mostly yellow and bigger, with a
Mhm.
much bigger, like this almost, with black splotching, I guess, yellow and black. Um, and they had that like sharp kind of humpback. So they were kept together, which I was surprised
Okay.
because they were like 3 times the size of these little guys. Um, but that's the community. I know they're totally separate. They can't breed. Those two can't breed at all.
No. Mm-mm.
Um, so I see those enclosures, and I know they're at a zoo as professional. They're way more trained than I am, and I always go to community tank. That's what I want to do, right? That's how I want to keep dart frogs, and not. I mean, it's species that just physically cannot breed. So, um, and obviously you don't do that as a breeder. You don't keep them
No.
communally, but the
Mm-mm.
challenges would be pretty immense, right? Especially for a rookie keeper to do something like that.
If I suppose if you got something like the Isabels, they're more arboreal, whereas like the tinks are terrestrial. So you
Yeah,
could probably mix those. I would think they don't interact with each other that much.
maybe not recommended though. Not recommended, guys.
Yeah, I
Keep them
wouldn't.
separate. I did kind of get sold on the idea of having, your 5 to 10 exoteras side by side, and then just like, these are my jewels, these are emeralds, these are rubies, these are
Yeah,
diamonds. Um, and I think that I like that idea. That would be like my communal shelf, right?
yeah,
Um, so I'd have, once I get my big thing built, that's my project. I want to do dart frogs after that, and so I think it'd be in a small container. And the only thing we saw is like a communal situation that we know of right now that's not totally shat upon from frog breeders, frog keepers, is mourning geckos. And it's still controversial, but mourning geckos with like tinks, because again, they're arboreal
right.
and they're
I
not going
did.
to be a problem.
I put one in. It got out somewhere in the house. They're sneaky.
Yeah, they're
It didn't.
fast.
Yeah, it didn't make it. I don't know where it went, but it is no longer in there. But it stayed high up in the tank and didn't bother anything.
Yeah, the problem I see is you'd never see it. So what's the
No.
point?
Mm-mm.
Why bother? It's a lot of extra effort
Right.
for no real payoff. And most of the other geckos that you would see, like the micro geckos or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
or if those would work. Now my brain is going on that, but that's not a question for you necessarily. Um, I'm always trying to mix things, like this big paludarium that I've planned. I'm going to mix stuff, and I finally found a breeder of emerald tree skinks, you guys. So that was Sunday. I'm very excited. That's what's going to be the feature in this major paludarium. I want to
Nice.
captive breed those. Thanks to Russ Wilson and Clint's Reptiles. Clint, they got me sold on those so much. Like, I'm obsessed. Um, but back to frogs. So now you're keeping 19 species. So then you have each species then has a grow out tank, obviously. Or do you
They're
do?
all they're all in their separate tanks. I have like the big Home Depot industrial shelves. I've got
Okay,
three of them. So on average, I've got three, and a couple of them have four
okay,
Bavarians on the bottom two shelves.
okay.
So
So
yeah, I
now,
just
and that's for all the exoteras, and then you have what size tanks do you use for grow outs, basically, so that the tadpoles.
I use for once they're no longer tadpoles and they're a little froglet. I prefer like the plastic shoe boxes, the bigger ones than we would keep
Yeah.
isopods in. But that's what I use, and I put on average 5 to 6 per per bin.
Okay.
And let them
Okay.
grow out in there because then I can watch them closely and make sure everyone's eating and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Mhm.
And they have enough space, but not too much to where they can all eat. Um,
Ye-
yeah. And then at
Yeah.
what point do you pull them? Like you, or like put them in a. At what point do you sell? I guess. And what size do you sell frogs? Like if you're going to ship them.
Um, if it's someone local and I don't have to ship it, 2 months. If I'm shipping it, I usually wait 2.5 to 3 months before I'll ship them.
Okay. And what's the life cycle like? So you have the egg, generally. Like let's say tinks. Let's stick to tinks. So
Okay.
because they're all pretty much the same, right, as far as development.
The ones I have now, the Tinks Lukes, yeah,
Okay. Okay. And that's a Lucamella, is that right?
yes, those
Okay.
are I love those.
I sound like I know what I'm talking about tonight. This is
Yeah.
really good. And I've been waiting so long to have a frog talk, and now it's 2 in 1 week, and my mind is exploding. So okay, so eggs. They lay the eggs. How long is it
Mhm.
egg?
It takes approximately 2 weeks for the egg to turn to a tadpole and to
Okay.
hatch.
Okay, and then they're in tad stage. I know it depends on like feeding and everything, but they're in a captive thing, so you're feeding them totally regularly. So tadpole to froglet.
So then, as soon as the tadpole hatches, I put it in a cup of water. I feed
Okay.
it a little tadpole bite. You feed it fish food, whatever works for you, every other day. And it takes about 2.5 months before it, pops all four of its legs. I should
Okay.
have brought, I think I have one right now. Should have brought it out. And then once it has all four of its legs, then it needs to, you don't feed it anymore. You need to somehow, I keep mine in like these little fruit fly deli cups. So I would put the tadpole in with just maybe a cup of water and I tilt it on its side so that the tadpole is able to, well, the frog at that point is able to get out of the water because its gills are turning, it's a bad way to say it, turning into lungs, or it's
Sure.
morphing. And so then once its tail absorbs, so it's in that cup tilted about a week, then it's a frog. And I would put it in the little plastic bin with the other ones.
Okay. So now you don't feed it while it's a froglet. You let it just absorb its tail. Basically, that's its nutrients.
Once I get it in this cup and
Yeah.
tilted, yeah, you don't feed it at all. Its nutrients are coming from its tail.
So the food would just pollute the water at that point. Basically, that's all it's doing.
Yes, in fact, before their front legs are the last, they pop, their back legs form and then their front legs will pop out. And usually, like a couple days before their front legs pop out, they stop eating.
Okay. So they know. They
Yeah.
know too. Um. So then, when they're in those little cups, I know we're getting off the topic already. What kind of? When they're in the little cups as tadpoles, you're talking like the little like portion cups, like right, like that.
I used to use these 32-ounce cups and just, had water in them, but there was just too many around the house. And I got creative and like at Home Depot, like those little organizers for like screws that have little drawers that pull out.
Yeah.
I've got a bunch of those. And so I fill it with water and I just, every time I feed, I just pull each out. each one out, so it keeps it nice and organized.
So it's kind of a small. They're kind of the long ones, right? They're a couple inches long, and
Yes.
then
Yeah.
like an inch and a half deep or something,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I have a couple of those. Okay. I'm not trying to compete with you by any means here.
No, you can.
Uh,
My frogs are old, so they they don't lay like they used to.
right? You got to get some new blood or save some of this blood that you've got. Um, now I know a lot of frog breeders, so I got to look you up. You probably know them too. You probably started them out. So, okay, so they're in the cups or they're in the drawer for
Yeah.
2 months. And
Yes.
then are you changing that water?
There's two ways to do it. Some people firmly swear that the water needs to be changed. I do not change the water. Maybe
Okay.
every 10 days, 2 weeks, whenever it starts to evaporate, I just top it off.
Okay.
So I'm constantly adding water to it. And I also add to the water an Indian almond leaf, just a piece of it. I guess it has antibacterial properties. And I've seen the tadpoles munch on it too. So
All right. All right. So these guys are just opportunistic feeders, the
yeah,
baby. Okay. So they
yeah,
would eat something they probably found dead or microbes or like copepods, right? Freshwater copepods or
yeah. I mean, I've seen fruit flies get in the water and they eat the dead fruit flies. Though I think
okay.
the carnivores, well, they also herbivores too at that point.
Yeah, because I've heard of cannibalism among them too, with the frogs. Maybe keep them
Yes,
all together, the tadpoles.
right.
And some people do.
The
Some
tanks.
people do.
Yeah, you can with like, well, familial, typically the parents will care for them. But certain ones you can keep together. Just the tinks and the lukes and the eratus, you can't. They have to
Okay.
be kept by themselves.
Those blue eratus are like, or the green eratus, is that right?
Yeah,
Those are the ones I want bad. And then there's
yeah.
an orange one. I think it's I want to say it's a tink, black and orange. Because orange is life. Uh, I love orange.
Do you?
Uh, Everything has to be orange. I don't know why. If it has an orange morph or orange thing, I want it.
That's yours.
Yeah, like Pak Chongs I like because they have an orange bill. That's it. That's it. I'm like, that's enough. It's enough for me. Um, all right. So then they get to so 2 months, 2 weeks as an egg, 2 months as a tadpole, a week as a
Mhm.
froglet, roughly, or where they're morphing into the froglet.
Yeah, they're morphing into a froglet, and then another 2 to 3 months as a froglet. So it takes a long
Okay.
time to raise a
Yeah.
froglet from the
So
egg.
then you said you're going like you'll sell it, you'll ship it 3 months
Around 3 months, yeah.
and local 2 months.
Hmm.
So they're a froglet 2 months. They're basically a frog, a full grown frog when you're shipping.
No, they're still pretty tiny. I mean, it takes
Okay.
you can't sex start frogs until they're close to a year. They're really I don't find that they're full grown until about 18 months.
Okay. And do you ever hold off on selling them until they're sexable? Because like myself, I wouldn't want to have. Well, I've got 3 females. I need 2 more setups. Like this
Yeah.
kind of sucks. Um, and that wouldn't be the breeder's fault at all because you said you don't know. But
No.
yeah, I wouldn't want to be in that situation or have to figure that out on the fly.
Yes. Now I do like right now I do have some 6 and 7 month old cobalts because I
Okay.
was saving them to try and pair up so I have new stock. Um,
Okay.
but
Good.
I still can't sex them yet with any bit of certainty.
And see, you probably have spare exoteras laying around, but I feel like that would be all right. I have my setup. That's the biggest expense.
It
Now I
is.
order my frogs. Shit, I need 2 more setups. But now I know I can keep them in drawers, or in screw drawers, and they'll be fine for a little while. Not they don't.
Tadpoles, yes.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Yeah, don't listen to me, guys. Listen to Sarah. I'm teasing. Um, yeah, Don finally showed up. That's good. Cobalts. Somebody's talking about cobalts. I think that's a frog, right?
Yes, it's a tink.
A tink.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many. It's hard to say like this species is way prettier than this species gets because there's so much diversity in every one of the species. It's crazy. Even the Tarabilis, I feel like they're the least diverse.
Yeah, but they're so cool just for how bold they are, and their skin is so metallic. When you
Yeah,
see it in the light and you can see it up close, it's very metallic.
pictures don't do them justice. Like I've seen them. The Shed Aquarium had them here for a while. I haven't been in a couple years, so they might still have them. But yeah, I was just like, what? Because I've seen pictures and it did not do it justice at all.
Mm-mm.
They were the ones that were like a deep metallic red. Like,
Yes.
yeah. And in person, they look kind of just like rusty almost in
Hmm.
photos. And then in person, they were like, whoa, this is amazing. So, and obviously they're not really toxic anymore either in captivity. But from what I understand, they're the hardest ones to keep, Terribilis.
I've thought I did have them. I got rid of them because I felt like Florida, and I just kept my house too hot.
Okay.
I think they're not any different than any of the others. I think they're more sensitive to heat than some of the others.
Okay.
But otherwise, I don't find any of the dart frog. The people will say there's, oh, this one's beginner, this one's intermediate, this one's advanced, and really, why they're saying that is how the frogs get along together. And really, in their feeding, they all require the same. Generally, they require the same setup and all
Okay.
that. I don't know that I'd ever, knowing what I know, I don't think that there's that much of anyone could handle any frog.
If you can handle one frog, you can handle all the frogs. It's just paying
Exactly.
attention. So you're
Exactly.
saying the temperament is really the key factor in how difficult they are.
Yeah, just, and I think if you're trying to breed them, that would add to the difficulty. But as just keeping the frogs, I wouldn't keep other than my house being too warm. Like I kept the terribilis the same as the tinks, the same as my thumbnails and my Pamilio. Everyone was kept the same. Um, humidity wise and all that. I mean, they would have different tanks. Like Pamilio like to climb, so of course their tank had more height. But otherwise, like the humidity and the plants and all that, you're pretty much, it's standard.
Okay, so it's just a matter of dimensions. Basically, is the only real
Yeah,
change up.
yeah. It's not. So I would never get scared that someone says, "Oh, this is not a beginner frog." They're just saying that, like it would be like the tinks. If you got like, say, a lot of people start off buying 4 because they want to try and get the pair,
Yeah.
male and female. Well, once they get about a year old or so, that's when the fighting, the aggression can start. Um, and so that's where people would say, maybe not a good beginner frog if you're going to keep 4 in there, because
Yeah.
you might not know what the aggression looks like at first. Um,
It's a lot of the headbutting and
Chasing.
I've seen it. Yeah, it's kind of because the two that you have, their feeding thing, like they just keep coming out together. So clearly they're not
Mm-mm.
fighting at all in the middle of a feed. Because I imagine that would be when a lot of the aggression is pronounced, is during feeding time, right?
When the male calls, like you could put 2 female tinks together, they're fine. It's when you add in that male that
Okay.
typically there's problems. Because I have 2 female azorius that live happily together, but there's no male in
Okay.
there. The calling, then you see them, they start wrestling. I mean, it looks like WWE. I mean, they are.
Well, and I mean that gets dangerous if you have several tanks because if a male is in another tank calling, they can still hear it. So they're
They
gonna
can, but
with
they
that.
typically don't do anything.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure why, because that's a good point. But they typically don't do anything.
That's weird to me because it's out of
Hmm.
sight, out of mind, I guess. But the
Yeah,
call is there to that's another paradox
yeah,
because like the call is there to get the female around and aroused. And if they don't care, he's nearby, he's like a shelf away.
Right.
Yeah, that's stupid frogs.
I mean, they'll perk up and they'll look around, but maybe it's because they don't see anything. I'm not sure, but they don't typically
I wonder what
react.
that is. If you're a frog person and you know, reach
Yeah.
out to me or Sarah or put it in the comments. Better yet, put it in the comments. I never get comments on these videos. So keep the conversation going. Like I rarely, new people sometimes leave comments like, hey man, this was a good one. Or I learned something about frogs today, and I learned that you don't know the word enrichment. We're talking about isopods still. Okay. Oh, what plants do you find work best?
For the tinks, you need something sturdy because they trample everything. So pothos, just something big, probably cheap, inexpensive that you don't care that it's going to get trampled. You'd see the more fancy plants with the smaller frogs.
Okay.
They work better. I mean, you can put them in with the tinks, but don't expect them to stay pretty for a long time.
They're going to get beat down a lot.
Yes.
Perfect. Now, guys, we're not going to get too deep into plants. Sarah made it clear she's a plant murderer. So pothos sounds perfect because you can't kill pothos.
I have good luck with the margravia too, like ficus.
Okay.
Oh, anthuriums too. I've always had. That's what lives in mine, and I can't kill it. So,
okay.
Yeah.
I know these plant names are. I'm going to watch this later and rewatch it and see what. Brahms are a big staple, but they can be difficult to keep. Yeah, ficus. Talking about bromeliads.
Yes.
But I heard they can be difficult to keep.
With the bromeliads, your lights are very important. And I find that if you take them out of the soil and just like stick them in like a V part of the wood or something, it works better. Otherwise, it just get too wet if they're in the soil, the substrate. But yeah, you just good lights and not in the substrate, and Brahms work well, especially for the Pumilio and the thumbnails, because that's where they lay their eggs.
Yeah, that was something that Vic just said too. Yeah, because they lay their eggs in the because they collect the water like cups basically, and then that's where the babies go.
Mm-hmm.
So now, do you wait for the in that situation? Are you looking for the babies or the eggs? You pull eggs, right? You pull the eggs out.
I do, because some of them are good parents, and I let them keep them. Others are not, and those I'll remove. But if you have Pumilio, the parents need to take care of them. The male actually, or I'm sorry, the female, they deposit eggs, not fertilized eggs to feed their young.
That's fascinating. I did see something about that recently, and I was like, wait, what? This is so cool. Like she'll come back every day or every 2 days or something, and she's got tadpoles kind of scattered around, right? So she's got to make a circuit.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. That's just nature's awesome.
It is.
Oh, there's nothing to feed them. I'm just gonna lay an egg. I want to see that species of chicken. Like, here you go. Don't worry about it. There's no male involved in this one. Do ferns or mushrooms cause any issues because of the spores?
No.
I wouldn't think so.
No, on occasion, like in your isopod bins or something where you get that yellow mushroom, the same thing will pop up in my viz sometimes. And sometimes if it's that, I forget what it's called. It's that house. It's something. Oh,
the flower pot fungus?
Yes. If I see it's that, I pluck it out right away, but it doesn't harm the frogs at all. I just don't want it spread all over the vivarium.
Yeah, for sure. It makes it super ugly. At that point, it's super hard to get rid of. Yeah. Have it right here.
Yes.
This was my tarantula enclosure, and I was hoping it would just dry out. Oh, there's a huge mushroom.
Yeah.
I didn't even notice that. That's awesome.
That's a big one.
All right, so this is a good fungus terrarium right here. That's like 90% cocoa fiber, so I don't know where that's coming from. Sorry, that's my basement. Those lights are on again for some reason. That's my ghost area. Those lights come on when they feel like it. Uh, it's like, if you can understand me, I need the winning lotto numbers. Yeah, flower pot fungus is no fun. I haven't seen that it harms anything,
I don't.
but I don't watch my bins enough. Like I feel like I just have isopods, so just checking on them every 2 weeks. I had it show up in my ant tank, and it
Yeah.
didn't do anything. It just went away eventually. I was plucking it out too when I saw it blooming. I was like, nope, and that usually is enough.
Yeah, yeah. I forget which bin I found it pop up in recently. It's just so random. I don't know
Yeah,
where it comes
yeah.
from.
Well, this is good advice. Just mix that up with the substrate.
Hmm.
Honestly, I think that flower pot fungus, if it died and was just in there, that would make a good additive to the substrate. But again, this is just cocoa fiber. I wouldn't obviously not put any isopods in there. Yeah, my poor tarantula. She's in a little, not a little thing, but it's not as deep. So I want her to have spots to burrow. Um, she's in her original enclosure now. It's these shoe boxes you were talking about, deeper shoe boxes, and I think this is what I have her in now.
Yeah, it would be
There she
something
is.
similar to that. Oh yeah, I see
And then
her.
there's a deeper. I have a deeper one that's like for boots, I guess. But those were like $4 at Walmart, I think.
Yeah,
Eventually, I'm going to switch all of my isopods over to these tubs. So I like them that much more. I like the clear. I like to be able to just at a glance, instead of those like translucent. I think they'd make. I don't know. Those might make good grow out tanks for froglets.
yeah.
If you covered those holes a little bit. there's holes on the side and the front. There's only like 10 of them, but I imagine they could either get out or get stuck. What first frog species did you first fall in love with? What started it?
Lucamellas.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually started off with a mixed tank. I bought a Lucamella, a Cobalt, and an Azurius. I still have all three. They are in separate tanks now.
Okay.
But I love Lukes. They're bold, and I've got banded Lukes, fine spot Lukes, standard Lukes, and chocolate Lukes. Um,
Okay.
so
Now the three you had in your community tank there, they can't
mhm.
breed anyway. That's the big. Well, that seems to be the big no is something that could interbreed and make hybrids basically because
Right.
you want to keep the lines pure, and I totally respect that, and I love that idea now that it's been better explained to me.
Yes, I have seen where it was a Luke and a green and black Aratus laid eggs. They ended up being golden, so I know those two can lay eggs. But I mean, frogs just lay. I mean, the female lays the eggs and the male fertilizes them. So I suppose any whether I, I don't know. I haven't tried, but
Yeah,
if Luke's and Aratus can, I,
I guess that's
I would,
true. Yeah,
yeah, maybe
some
someday I'll do
friendly
an
fire.
experiment.
Nah, you can get a lot of people to yell at you.
Yeah, oh
Um,
gosh, could you imagine?
Frog people get really angry. We tried to
But
talk about it.
they're the first ones that do it. Cool. And I will tell you, a lot of them have mixed tanks, and they will lecture you on not having mixed tanks.
And they still do it.
They do it.
Sons of bitches. No, I was trying to
Well,
say,
I know.
I was trying to say to Josh that, and he made a good point about it, but in their defense, but I have quit more mathematically. I don't know how this is possible, but I think I've quit more frog groups on Facebook than I've actually joined because people ask questions. They come on and they're new and they ask questions, and some of the questions are real dumb, and I get the frustration. Like, hey, I got this frog. I've had him a month. He looks like he's about to die. What can I do? And they show a picture of the frog in the setup, and the setup is like, I don't know, they have them on sand or something. It's ridiculous. It's like it's the worst thing ever, and they just destroy that person. And it's like, yeah, that's great. Like that person sucks, but you're destroying that person isn't helping the frog
Right.
either. So maybe settle down.
Yeah.
And I
Dark
get
frog
that.
people are they're mean at times. They're downright mean, a lot of them. That's why you just kind of keep to yourself. But I have been in their houses, and I will tell you, they have them.
I don't want names because I'll go back to those
No,
groups and be
no,
like,
I'm
you
never
dirty
saying
bastard.
names, but
Good. Because
yeah,
I'm vengeful. I'll go back just because they
yeah,
were snotty to me. Because I was asking questions, but I don't have frogs. So, and they were still like, "Oh, get a book, dummy." And it's like, okay,
yeah.
thanks. I thought this was like Dark Frog Beginners is the name of the
Right.
group. Like,
Yeah.
Andrew had a good question. What frog would you recommend as a starter?
I would like an Aratus or a Lucamella or Tanks. Any of those would be fine. They're any easier than the thumbnail, or the Pamelia, but you can see them better. You can watch them. They're more out and about. I would probably stick with the Lucamella or the Aratus because you can get four and they'll get along as a group their entire life. Whereas the Tink,
Okay.
they're gonna get along just fine for the first year, but keep in mind somewhere around that 1 year mark, you may have to split them up.
Okay. I like the idea of getting the four pack and let them just hang out, like let them be happy together.
Yeah.
Because again, I want to see them. I want to see interactions between them. I want to
Yeah.
see, oh hey, this is Jim and this is Fred, because they have distinct enough markings that you could
Yes.
feasibly tell them apart. So um, that's
And
fantastic.
just keep in mind that a lot of the Aratus are
Yeah.
shot. So they're gonna, I have some, I have two tanks with turquoise and bronze Aratus. One, they are out and about, will jump on your hand, all that. The other one, you never see. So it's kind of hit or miss. Luke's I don't really have that problem with, and Tinks in general, that's not an issue either.
Okay. All right. And that was Luke's. You said. Sorry, I was reading the questions. I didn't get everything you said. So that was the Luke's that are so varied. You had one that comes out and jumps in your hand, and the other one hides, or was that the
No,
Aratus?
the Aratus, the ones
Okay.
you
Okay.
want, the green and blacks.
I love them. They're
I
so
know
pretty.
they are pretty,
They're
but
just so
it's
pretty.
kind of 50-50. They're either out or they're, you know,
I don't want that 50-50. So I'll have to do my.
I
I'll be
know.
calling you. I'll be messaging you. Like, hey, Sarah, I'm thinking of frogs now. I'm gonna take that dive.
Yeah,
Do you feed them every day?
I do. Every day
Okay.
I feed them.
I think we covered that already. Yeah. I just wanted to make sure. And then what would be the most forgiving? I think Andrew, like she was saying, like the ones that the biggest problem before you came on. I think the biggest problem she said with keeping them, what makes them advanced or intermediate or whatever, is temperament between each other. So the ones that are going to fight or get along or whatever. So that's the biggest challenge, right? For
Yes,
for beginners to try to take,
yes,
and the rest of it's kind of standardized. So the only other variation you said was height for the more arboreal species.
right. Like the Lukes do like some height. They occasionally will climb, but Tinks, Aratus, they're pretty much terrestrial. Thumbnails, Familio, they like height.
Okay, okay. Um, what do we got here? We're getting some good questions. The tub has leftover soap, no good way to add filtration, and no chiller. Oh, they're talking about lobsters. Okay. They go off on these tangents. They were talking about lobsters because setups are such a big issue with people that have the dumb setups and they post like, hey, this is what I'm keeping my 3 frogs in. And you got to be like, no, don't do that. Sand is bad. I don't know why you'd have them on aquarium gravel. I've seen that. I've seen pictures of where they're on aquarium gravel with some leaf litter on top of it. And it's like, what are you doing?
Right. I had someone purchase some frogs from me a couple weeks ago, and I'm still holding him because he's building his tank, and he sent me pictures the other day, and he's like, and I put white gravel all in it so that I can see them, and it's cocoa huts and gravel. I'm like, oh, like part of me wants to not. I don't want to send him now, but he's already paid for them. So I'm like, have you researched bioactive vivariums?
I know you already paid this money. I don't want you to waste it, but I can
Right?
hold these while you get a proper setup. Like
Right.
the only time I see the white gravel being a thing is people that see a setup at a show, like a really cool setup with like a mini waterfall and the whole deal, um, because they have that false bottom, and you can
Right.
totally see it in Exoterra. Like so, there's the balls or whatever, those clay balls, and then
Mhm.
on top of that the white gravel, and then the dirt on top of that. So you've got like a double false bottom, and that's great. But
Right.
then I think people see that white gravel, they're like, oh, I could. That's dope. I could totally do that. Um, Andrew refined his question. I think I misread it. So the most forgiving for husbandry.
I mean, it's hit or like right now. I've got 4 frogs, powder blue tinctorius. I've got 2 males and 2 females. They're living happily in there, but they're just not breeding. It is really hit or miss, and you'll find with a lot of dart frog breeders, something may just not breed for me, but I can send it to another breeder and it breeds right away. Um, so the husbandry on it's really it's hit or miss. But the ones that are very easy usually are the leucomellas and the eratas. And
Mhm.
things in general are easy too.
Okay. Okay. I
But it's
wonder if
just
some of it. I hear that story a lot too with dart frog breeders and some reptile breeders, and I wonder if it's regional, like the barometrics or something is different. So
yeah,
I don't know. That's just a thought too. Let's
yeah.
see.
I know when a hurricane is coming our way, everybody starts laying eggs. It's
Really,
yeah,
that's interesting. Like just
yeah,
to get them out there. We gotta
yeah.
go. We might not be here tomorrow.
Right.
We might be in Georgia. Um, what would be the main issue with gravel? Or like, Justin, are you asking like, could you have a little section of gravel like decoratively, or do you just mean on a base gravel? I think yeah, swallow it. Food would get down in it, like the fruit
Yeah.
flies would get down in it.
I mean, I don't see if it's not bioactive, then you're having to clean it. So that means you have to take everything out. I don't know. To me, it doesn't. Maybe it does mimic their normal environment.
Yeah,
I guess in the problem I had with the person's tank that they showed me is there was no moss. Like, how is you need like the sphagnum moss? You need something to keep the humidity in, and I don't. Without those rocks being flooded halfway up, I just don't. I couldn't figure out where he was getting humidity. So they didn't die after
yeah.
being in there 3 hours.
That was Menagerie's issue. It might be rough on their skin.
Hmm.
I think a lot of the aquarium gravel is pretty tumbled, though. I don't imagine a lot of like sharp or rough edges, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, it looked like white aquarium gravel to me.
Yeah,
So it looked more shiny and rounded. Um, the humidity was my main thinking. And I don't,
sure.
I mean, you'd think the frog needs somewhere to hide and to hop around. I mean, there was no leaves, no plants. It was gravel, couple cocoa huts in like this huge, at 4 foot.
Like what the hell?
No,
If you
I
have them in a
was,
55, I feel like you could have a bunch of frogs if you had enough hides and enough things to like break up sight lines.
mhm.
You could probably have a bunch of tinks in there, and they'd be pretty fine. Like you were saying, like line of sight seems to be a big deal when the males are calling.
Yeah.
Hypothetically, I think if you're keeping a good eye on them, that might be worth an experiment. But that I want to try.
Yeah. You
But
you know right away when they're not getting along. It's obvious.
yeah, I would imagine that they're just go. You said they wrestle a lot, right?
Oh yeah, like headlocks, the whole
So they'll go to the point that they kill the other one, though. That's the problem.
stress it out. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. what is this? Some of the forbidden snack Reddits. I don't need to get on those. Normally I eat something. I didn't have anything prepared today. Normally I have some weird ass snack that I try or
No.
new drink, or I don't have anything. And I did see the bag of the vegan turkey jerky that I had the one day, and is the worst thing I've ever put in my mouth.
It doesn't sound good.
The isopods wouldn't eat it. I put it in with the dairy cows. 2 weeks later, it was still there. It was like untouched. There was like an inch border around it. They were like, nope. So dairy cows won't eat it. What did I just put in my mouth? They ate cat poop. They ate cat poop as an experiment. Like,
oh, they did.
Oh yeah. My cats. One of my cats, I have to get a mat. I had to get a mat because he poops exclusively under the basement stairs. He won't go in the box, and so I had to get a plastic. Like, there's a sheet that I have down there that he drives me crazy. Somebody wants a free range. No, he's not free range. If anybody wants a cat, let me know. He's adorable. It's not the one that comes up on me. That's the one that throws up. He throws up everywhere, and then he meows to let you know. He at least meows to let you know. Hey,
that's very.
Hey, I threw up. You haven't taught me how to do this in the toilet. Some person there's aquarium gravel pick. Okay. They're off the rails again. That's good. That's kind of this show. So we go off the rails constantly. What else did I want to ask you? I had an important question that we may have covered. Airflow, humidity is good, but airflow is still a thing too, right? You still want to get it good.
For your plants is the main thing. I mean, I've seen some absolutely beautiful setups, and they have these little tiny fans just to get some airflow. And there's absolutely beautiful plants in those vivariums. So, I mean, the exoterras have the area for airflow in the front, underneath the doors. And that's adequate for what I need. But if I wanted to have really beautiful plants and all that kind of stuff, yes, extra airflow would definitely be.
So that would help you out. So, but you'd have to keep track of that. You'd have to have the hygrometer and everything on there to make sure you had the right humidity still.
Yeah.
Or I guess that at that point, you're just keeping your substrate moist because they're there anyway. They need the humidity on the ground.
Yeah, I think as long as you kept it up higher and it wasn't pointing down on
the ground. Yeah, dry them out. You'd have little raisins.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's not the right kind. You don't want to keep them as raisins, guys. That's number one. If you take one thing away, if they look like raisins, you did something wrong. All that humidity.
Crispy raisins.
Yeah. Menagerie made a good point. I was going to mention this too. The USB computer fans are super cool for keeping that aeration. So that's part of my design. I've been hoarding materials. So the vivarium I want to build is the paludarium has a 55-gallon as the water feature, basically. And then I'm going to build a 2-foot waterfall into that that's going to be the filter basically for the tank.
Nice.
That will be community. Like the nano stuff, that's what I want. Just hundreds and hundreds of fish and shrimp in there, and it's amazing. And then on top of that, a 4-foot vivarium. So basically on top of that, so plants and whatever I can fit in there. I was thinking about putting a bird in there at one point. I was like, what are you doing? That's where my brain goes. So if you think I wouldn't keep 15 different kinds of dart frog together, you're crazy.
Just don't write it on dendron board. Whatever you do.
I would feel bad. I do see totally the value of keeping the line pure and because they are rare. There's Josh made a good point. There's more dart frogs in captivity than there will ever be in the wild. Yeah. So, like each species, they wouldn't have that much space because he was explaining there's just little slices like a pie of jungle that has this type of Aratus, and then over here is this type, and then there's very distinct borders. So whatever they are doing in that pie slice is enough to make a different morph or a different type of that frog. So, I think that makes a good point for keeping them separate and keeping that pure. And then especially if you're going to sell them, because he's like, if you have pairs, you're going to get babies. You're going to. So you need to do something.
Yeah, if you have no intention of selling them whatsoever and you just wanted a beautiful vivarium with frogs in it, then as long as everyone gets along, I don't see what the problem is. But if you try and sell a frog, and
Yeah,
I don't know for sure, but I've heard that like say that Aratus I was talking about in that Lucamella, I've heard that the offspring are sterile, so they can't reproduce. Whether that's true or not, I'm not sure. I haven't researched it, but that was the
yeah,
talk for quite some time.
okay, okay. Yeah, as long as you're keeping them alive and keeping them well. His point too is like people that would keep, and this makes sense to me, the mentality that would keep, let's go with my numbers, 15 species together in like a 45-gallon tank, or I
Mhm.
found a 125 that I need to seal, and I want to do something with that. But keeping those species there, if you're not going to, that mentality that wants all those species isn't a mentality that's going to cull to, get rid of those babies. Because, like you
Right.
said, your one is like 13 years old and she's still going.
Mhm.
So in 13 years, you could have hundreds of frogs out of those 15 potentially.
Yeah.
So, but that mentality, like the person like me that wants to keep a million of them, would never purposely kill the babies. Like what?
Right.
So then I'd be overrun. What was this? Okay, I'm way behind on questions. Do you miss? We're almost done. We're almost done. I promise. Do you miss by hand or do you have a system?
I miss by hand because I like the interaction with my frogs. I like to look at them every day. I like to watch the interactions as they go around. But you'll find that most people have mist systems. I just that
Yeah,
gives me like the frog room is, I guess, my woman cave.
yeah.
I go in there and I get to see my frogs, and I spend time spraying them and feeding them each day. Whereas if it was on a mister, I might be tempted to not feed them each day or go in there and look at them or
Yeah, take them for granted a little bit more. Like
yeah,
I like that you get that much enjoyment out of them
yeah.
this long after. Um, Jedi Bucket, we kind of talked about this the other night too, but because that's super difficult if you have this many types of frogs, even though their care is the same. But yeah, vacations. What do you do?
So it depends. Now in this house, I have like these wonderful neighbors who finally one day I was like, they're like, "Oh, we'll watch your dog and your cat." I was like, I got some frogs. Oh, we'll take care of your frog. Oh no, 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 no. It's frogs. And so the first time people walk into my frog room, they're like, "Oh, you're a mad scientist." Like it's overwhelming. Every time we
My
go to
family, anytime someone comes over to the house, can we see your isopods?
yeah.
And then they stand 10 feet away, like, I'm good. I'm good here. You don't need to get me any closer.
Yeah, so my neighbor will come over right now and do it. They enjoy it.
Okay.
Previously, like if I was gone just a weekend or something, I would use like some fruit flies. So I, I don't know if you can see like the little holes in here. What
Yeah.
I would do is I would grab one that's gonna die out in a week, and I would just poke some of these maybe like three holes, and the flies will gradually crawl out of it. So they
Okay.
get fed. And then whoever was pet sitting the dog would just miss them for me. That's typically what most of the up until we moved here, it was usually I would take an older fruit fly culture and just poke the hole and
I mean, that makes sense. And
yeah,
like if you're doing the Repashy thing, I know they're getting gut loaded with most of the
yeah.
vitamins they need, and being shy calcium or whatever for a week
Mm-mm.
isn't gonna hurt them or whatever it is. Yeah. So then we had a morbid question. What would you say is the best way to euthanize a frog if you have to?
They say like ambisol on the back. Um,
Ambisol?
ambisol.
I don't even know what that is. Just a drop,
Like,
like an
like
eyedropper.
yeah, like for toothaches. The
Oh, okay, like with the lidocaine and stuff in it.
yes, yes.
Okay, okay, that makes sense. Um, I have had to euthanize pets at home in the past. Like I think it was a guinea pig that
Um,
we had treated her. She had an intreatable, like it was an inoperable cancer. Basically, they found. So and we kept her until it was, they tell you it's time.
Hmm.
So your pets tell you it's time. So I used dry ice. So I made a setup so she was in the fog basically. So all she had, she went to sleep and then she passed, and that was it.
Oh,
Um, so that was, I mean, it was suffocation, but basically you fall asleep from oxygen deprivation and you don't know any better.
oh.
So um, that works for me, but then I would think it would work for frogs, but it's a hassle. I will say that's a hassle. So, or if you need to go scorched earth on because you have dwarf whites that invaded your bins, get everything you can out of there and do that, or you can put your bin in the freezer, I guess. But
Yeah.
for isopods, uh,
Luckily, I've never had to euthanize one. Um, I rarely do I lose any of the froglets, but if I do, typically they're already dead. Like they'll look. It's weird because they look fine. There's no signs, if there's anything wrong. You just find them
okay,
usually.
you just all of a sudden they're gone. Okay.
Yeah, they're just gone.
Um, I think freezer. So Vic was mentioning the freezer, and I think from what I understand, the freezer is it's painful. So they start. You don't just fall asleep and freeze. Like freezing to death is not great. It's a rough way to go. So you do fall asleep eventually, but getting there is rough.
Yeah.
So I think I'd rather get a hammer than frozen to death. But that's me. That's me. Helium too. Oh yeah, helium would work, and then afterwards you could talk funny, so you're not as sad. Um, that's awful. That is my awful thought for today. Um, Guys, this has been great. This has been so great. I thank you personally for coming on. Like I told you, this episode means a lot to me and on a lot of different levels. So we got to talk about frogs. We got to talk to Sara Kemp.
Yes.
Um, yeah, I know I've been bothering you for a while, like on and off, kind of.
Yeah.
We have another guest that I've been bugging that I've been like very gentle. But this
Oh,
was fun, right? This was fun for
yes.
anybody who's shy or is worried about
Yes.
public speaking.
Right.
Um, it wasn't that hard.
No, it wasn't at all. It was a very good experience, and thank you for having me come on.
And I hope you get something now. Oh no, that's for our business things. Never mind. So I have your link below. Hopefully this generates a little bit of bump in business for you, or at least site traffic. You're definitely gonna get some site traffic with your 75 species up there. I need to see what you have. Um, I know that I like the sites that have a lot of stuff that I haven't seen before. It might not be like rare or beautiful or whatever, but if I haven't seen it, I get
Yeah.
real excited. There's a species that I want to replace because I honestly I forgot I had them. They were I set up bins weird on my new shelves, and they were in the back, and I forgot there were bins in the back, so I lost my zebras, which honestly
Oh,
they weren't doing any good for me anyway. I had them in a little container. I don't have one right here. Oh, I had them in this, not this particular one, but I had them in this size container, and
okay.
they never outgrew this. I never got more than like 3 dozen.
Oh,
But yeah, one of my favorites. I forgot they were in there with the zebras. They were on top of each other, right behind me, and they dried out and everything died, and I was super sad. So
oh,
trilobites.
oh, okay.
No, it's Troglodylophus. I never did get their name down, but they look like Porcelio had a clown morph. They kind of look like
Okay.
that, like they're orange bodied, like a dark orange brown body, and then the yellow spots down the back
Okay.
bilaterally. So um, I know Brittany Wedland had them over at Isopod Chick, and so I like to look for stuff like that. Like
Right.
they're not amazing, but I was like, ooh, these are really cool, and they're mid-range price. Mid-range to me is like $60, which is not mid-range anymore.
No, that's
Mid-range is $250 for a 6 count now. So
and the crazy thing is it's kind of like frogs. I wanted these expensive, fancy frogs because everyone had them. Well, my isopods now, back in 2010 when I started keeping them before it was cool to keep them, and we couldn't keep um, scavers alive. It was hard to even do that.
oh my god.
I kind of want to go back to just I like the basic stuff. That's
I
what
think so too. And I,
Mhm.
God bless all the people that came up with all the crazy morphs. Like,
I
there's
know.
so many cool morphs, especially you mentioned scabers.
Yeah.
Every time I look, there's like 500.
No.
Yellow snow is my favorite because they could have called them peepees and been the same thing. So, guys, I think we kept it really family friendly today. I did have a couple drops of a curse word, but and I hope you're okay with that. It hasn't reflected badly on anyone's business yet. I learned a lot today,
Okay.
and we got a different. I like to get a different perspective. So,
Yeah.
and to get that from Thursday to Tuesday is really great to me, back to back. We're talking about a diabetes. The Wilford Brimley of isopods. Oh, there we go with the mustache. Perfect. Brimleyus diabetes. Love it. Love it. And that's what I need to name something next. Yeah, I like the idea of all of these different frogs. And I love the idea of the exoteras set up as display cases basically for my jewels. I think that's super cool.
Yes.
And I need to get some of those shells that you're talking
Oh,
about.
yes.
Because I want to, my newts. I have one species of newt, and the male died. He escaped and dried out on me, unfortunately. But the babies are growing out, and I have them in 5 different tanks. So there's 6 tanks for one species of newt because they eat each other if they are if they are of different size.
Okay.
So and they patch out here and there. Like they don't lay their eggs all at once. So
Okay.
it's like 2 or 3 a day that they lay, and they fold them in stuff. Anyway, so I need those shells. So this was a lot of fun. Thank you very much, Sarah. I'm going to do my closing.
Okay.
So I've had a great time. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for coming.
Thank you. If you have any questions, shoot me a message.
Yeah, shoot Sarah a message. She's on IsoBuddies.
Yes.
So just put it out and tag her, Sara Kemp. You can see it there. And she will, it sounds like, definitely get a good answer. So yeah, if she's not missing or feeding constantly, she'll take time out to answer your question. All right.
All right. Bye. Have a good night.
Bye, Sarah. Thank you so much.
Bye.
All right, guys. Again, I want to reiterate this was great. I had a great time this episode. I hope you did too. We have to focus on getting Maites on here. We have to focus on that, guys. So let's lightly harass them, because I feel like they're the group that if you harass them too much, they won't do it because we're bothering them. So let's come together, Juglone style, and get them here. Delicious newt snacks. Yeah. The one newt is by himself. The one that kept eating his siblings. He's almost 3 times the size of the next biggest one. So I have the big guy in one, who I've named Juglone. I don't know if it's a boy or girl yet. I don't know how you tell before they get the crest. And then I have 4 in another tank. And I have 4 in another tank. And then I have 3 in another tank. So I guess it's 4 tanks. I have one ready to go that has, it's basically a 5th vernal pool, because I have 5 vernal pools now too, because they can be in a jar, essentially. What else? So yes, like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, comments, share these videos. We crossed 240 subs today, guys. Holy crap, we're so close to 250. I can't believe it. So it's only taken this long. Special thanks again to Wally Kern and Russ Wilson for promoting the channel and helping and always just being there. So we've got some good lineups coming soon. So we have next week, I feel like I should know this off the top of my head, and I don't, or have it written down somewhere. Next week we have Swampy's Bugs, Swampy's Beardeds. We're going to talk bearded dragons, finally. So I'm excited for that. We've been trying to do that. On the 2nd, we have Josh Kristen coming in, Kristinette. We're going to talk about ants again. Actually, we're not going to talk about ants. We're going to talk about mounting our specimens and specimen preservation. So we're going to talk about that exclusively. He's really good at it. We had him on before to talk about honeypot ants, I believe, is what we talked about. So we're going to talk about mounting and preserving our specimens. So he does it where he sends them to labs, and then he does it for his own private collections. He's really, really good at it. So I'm excited for that. On the 9th, we're going to talk to Wally Kern about vending, about going to shows and being a vendor at shows. So in the ins and outs and the basics of that. So that's going to be good. And then I don't have anything else planned right now. September, we're going to try to get Brandy on again. Brandy Larson Lowe. And then we're going to try to get Hodgepodge Pods on next month. One of the days next month, I am going to have a very special episode where it's just me. And it's going to be very adult-oriented. So don't bring your kids. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be fun. It's going to be very playful. Playfully adult, okay? Honeypot ants are not super hard to preserve. To preserve them, yes, if they have their honey. I do hear they're delicious, though. That would be a great thing to eat on the show. Mounting is fun, Victor, in my experience. Oh, but bugs. Okay, bugs. So we have some really fun stuff coming up, guys. If you know of anybody, or you are somebody that wants to do the Thursday shows where we do a business profile, a business feature, let them know. Have them reach out. I'm not going to personally reach out to people to do that because this is promoting your business. You should be doing that. I'm going to let you have this time, up to an hour and a half, apparently, to promote your business to my massive, amazing audience. But yeah, come on in and we're going to have a great time. So you saw how those went. If you need to see it, look at last Thursday's episode with Josh Ferris. I thought it went really well. It went way longer than I promised him, but he didn't even notice, so it was good. That's it, guys. If you know anybody, please, like, share, subscribe, bell icon, comment, all that stuff. Nobody ever comments, you guys, and all you do is talk here. So comment on something. Give me an idea for a show. If you want to see something on here, let me know, and we'll try to figure it out. I'm going to try to get Clint from Clint's Reptiles on here because I'm cocky, and we're gonna see how that goes. So I don't expect any response, but we had Oren McMonagle on, and no one has ever done that. So damn the man, save the kingdom. Fry Oreos. All right, have a good night, Menagerie. Send some of those over here. Whip scorpions. Okay, dope. I can definitely do that. I know multiple people that have whip scorpions that we can have on to do that. I want to talk velvet spiders too. I need to get a hold of somebody for that. So guys, have a good night. I love you. Peace out. And I hope all your dreams